Nothing. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. We will start in about 4 minutes. We're just giving the last few people with their registrations coming through an opportunity to come in and join everyone. So if you want to find a seat and grab a drink, and there's also some lovely food down the back there if you wanted to get something, but you're also welcome to hop up during the meeting and help yourself to food and beverages. Thank you. Well, welcome everyone to those present to the annual meeting of Electors, and I declare this meeting open at 6:10 tonight. Thank you to everyone that's come along and taken the time out to come and join us tonight. I'd just like to begin with our acknowledgement of country, which is the City of Swan acknowledges the traditional custodians of this region, the Whadjuk people of the Noongar Nation, and their continuing connection to the land, waters and community. And we pay our respects to elders past, present and their descendants. So a little bit of housekeeping before we commence the meeting. Should you need to exit the meeting, please, to access the toilet or facilities is out of the main doors in the middle here, and just turn left, and the toilets are on the right-hand corner, but somebody will help you and the staff will be there to guide you if you need it. So If there is a fire as well, you need to exit in the event of an emergency tonight. You'll be asked to move out of this door in an orderly fashion, and staff will direct you to the nearest exit to our marshalling point, which is out in the car park. So there's an exit just here to your right, and we'll all use the right exit or the back of the door, but just follow staff instructions if there is an event. Please, again, don't hesitate to see the staff at the registration desk. They're all here to help you. And we've got security here if you need any assistance or guidance. And hopefully tonight we'll move pretty orderly through our meeting. So the purpose of the meeting tonight is to present the 2023-24 annual report to the community, and also to allow you, the electors, to have and ask questions and to have a say on local matters that are really important to you. And we're definitely here to listen tonight, and we look forward to those questions. Under the Local Government Act of 1995, procedures for this meeting to be determined by the presiding member. And the procedure for public participation would have been provided to you at the registration desk, either in a hard copy or via the QR code, and it's also available on the city's website. So tonight I'd like to introduce our council members. Some of you may know, some you may not, some are newer. And we have Deputy Mayor Ian Johnson, if everyone can see, Councillor Jennifer Catalano from the Altone Ward. We have Councillor Sarah Howlett from the Midland Guildford Ward, and Councillor Paddy Jones from Pearce Ward, Councillor Evia Ringo from the Pearce Ward, Councillor Rod Henderson from Swan Valley Gidgegannup Ward, that's Rod, and Councillor Charlie Zanino from Swan Valley Gidgegannup Ward is an apology tonight. We have still Councillor Dawn over here, good evening, and Councillor Hayden Miles from Whiteman Ward, and I think we had Councillor Dave Knight from Whiteman Ward as well. So if you're not sure who your councillors are, you're more than welcome to mingle after, and if you've got a question or you need to get some contact details, feel free to have a chat to them after. This is where we get to the important part tonight. So it's a bit of reading here, just bear with me. So in an endeavour to provide a fair and equal opportunity for all the electors here tonight, those electors who have submitted their motions in writing prior to the meeting, they'll be invited to speak tonight in the order of which they were received to staff. Motions received after the deadline will be provided with a written response advising on how you may best progress the matter. Motions that need to be moved and seconded before any discussion is to occur, so that's what's going to happen. They'll be moved and seconded, and then the discussion will follow. Only electors of the City of Swan are entitled to move motions or vote on motions. Each elector present is entitled to one vote, but does not have to vote if they do not choose. A speaker will have a maximum of 3 minutes to make their statement. And also, the mover of a motion will be invited to speak first, and then I will call for a seconder for the motion. So if you have a motion you're putting up tonight, you need someone to second that. If you've got a friend in the audience or someone that you've already teed up to do that. So any speakers against the motion. So there being no speakers against the motion will be put to the vote. If there are speakers against the motion, the following debating protocol will apply. The mover of a motion will be invited to speak first, and the speaker against the motion will also be invited to speak next. I'll then call for other verified electors who wish to speak with a maximum of 3 speakers for each side, and each speaker will be given a maximum of 3 minutes each to speak. So it's all a bit, but we will walk you through this, don't worry. So the mover of the motion has the right of reply, and this closes the debate. Again, the mover does not need to exercise their right of reply if they do not wish to. And the right of reply is limited to a maximum of 3 minutes. A verified elector may rise and move a motion without discussion, that the motion now be put, which on being duly seconded and carried by a simple majority will result in submission of the motion at once to the meeting, so there wouldn't be any debate after that. If I determine that sufficient and fair debate has occurred on a motion, then I will invite the mover to exercise the right of reply and put that motion to the vote straight away. So when you're registered this evening, if you are an eligible voter, when you signed in, you will have received a green and a red voting card. That's the two. Marilyn has got them to show you. So then, I don't have a pair, but we did see, did everyone see the red and green cards? Has everyone picked them up at the front desk? Is anyone who hasn't picked up a red and green card yet? Okay. Right, so when it comes to voting, I'm going to do it when we take a vote. When I ask you if you're in support of the motion, in favour of the motion, please raise your hand and show a green card. When I ask if you're against the motion, please raise your red card and your hand up nice and high so we can go around and count them. Each motion will then be determined by a simple majority vote. So please continue to hold your card high in the air until the count has concluded, and then we'll ask you to pop them down. So for those electors who submitted questions prior to the meeting, where possible, a written response has been provided directly to you, and I'll read these questions and answers out during section 4. Answers to any questions taken on notice tonight will be provided in the minutes of this meeting. We're nearly there. So if time permits, I may ask if there are any further motions or questions from the floor, and electors are permitted to ask up to 3 questions at a time. All questions from the floor should be provided in written format and given to the city officers. We will endeavour to respond to any questions of a general nature. However, any questions requiring information that we're not able to provide tonight means that, or requires a detailed response, they'll be taken on notice, and the responses to all questions will be provided in the minutes of the meeting. When speaking at the meeting, under our regulations, you must use the microphone provided, state your name and suburb for recording in the minutes, address the meeting through the presiding member, limit the statements to fact and not opinion or suppositions, not reflect adversely on council or council members or city employees, and refrain from making repetitive comment on matters that have already been discussed to ensure that the meeting can flow smoothly and progress effectively. So if we can keep it really nice and fair tonight and open, we're going to have a really good meeting, and we're going to listen to, the issues that really affect you there in the community. And we want to hear what everyone's got to say tonight to make it a great meeting. So when you're invited to speak, please raise your hand and a city officer will bring you a microphone. When the meeting concludes, at the latest possibly 9 o'clock tonight, I'm just going to also ask the CEO, please, that he can make it clear to everyone what happens next after we've been through the motions. We want to make sure that the community is clear about what happens after they've presented their motions tonight and after the results, what's going to happen at the end of this meeting. So I'll ask you, please, Mr. CEO.
Thank you. And good evening. Good evening. It's nice to see all the smiling faces so far in the audience tonight. Under the Local Government Act, once a motion is successfully passed to the meeting, that is, there has been mover and a second, and it's had a greater supporter than against pass, a report must be presented to a future council meeting. This would normally be no later than April. Each of the motions will be summarised with information contained in that summary showing what the city's view is on the motion. In some cases, matters may be operational and we can deal with these operationally and we may respond to them. In others, we require council to make a decision on a matter before it can be resolved further. Several of the motions tonight that have already been registered have actions that are already ongoing by council, and that will be reflected in any officer's report. When the motion is coming back, the person who moved it will have been advised by staff that the matter is listed for consideration at the council meeting.
Thank you, Mr. CEO. So move on to attendance and apologies. I have apologies that have been received for the meeting for the following council members: Councillor Aaron Bowman, Councillor Jaydeep Singh, Councillor Rochelle Prodovnik, and Councillor Charlie Zanino. Now, consistent with Section 5.27 of the Local Government Act 1995 and the Regulation 15 of the Local Government Administration Regulations 1996, the matters to be discussed at a general electors meeting are, firstly, the contents of the annual report for the previous financial year, and then any general business. So the 2023-24 annual report was adopted by Council at its December 11, 2024 ordinary council meeting. So I invite the City CEO, Stephen Kane, to speak to the annual report.
Thank you. Good evening. We've taken some of your feedback from last year, and in terms of a short video presentation, which we'll show in a few minutes, We're focusing as much on the year ahead as that we've already had behind. The annual report contains a significant amount of material. For those of you who have read it, we look forward to your questions later this evening. But I'd like to say that 2025 is already shaping up for a very productive year for the city. We've started the year with a bang with several major community events. Just over the last few weeks, we've had an inflatables day at the Swan Active and Beach Borough. Australia Day citizenships were another great success, with 91 people becoming citizens of the City of Swan. We opened last Friday the Balladura Intergenerational Play Space, a $7.5 million commitment that also included $2 million worth of Lottery West funding. And on the weekend, we opened and had the Swan Active Ellenbrook sod turning. This very significant project, $108 million development adjacent to the Ellenbrook train station, will not only enliven the heart of Ellenbrook, it forms one of the cornerstones of the civic precinct that is supporting the future growth of Ellenbrook. And in conjunction with that, we had the Ellenbrook Inflatable Day. Now, for those of you who live on this side of the city, Ellenbrook is a much hotter community. It was 38 degrees there when it can often be 32 down here. So for the community, the promise of a pool is long overdue, and we're very grateful. I say that again, very grateful for the land contribution that's been made available by the state government at the cornerstone of that site. Similarly, on the weekend, we launched the Wooroloo Bushfire Art Trail. This memorial trail commemorates the terrible events that happened in the fires, but leaves a permanent and enduring reminder that art can help fix much of what's gone wrong in our lives. But that's just the year ahead, and it's only the tip of the iceberg. I'd like to acknowledge, please, if I could, the community representatives who are here, those who volunteer in so many communities groups, whether they be friends groups, whether they be community associations, whether they be playgroup leaders. Any activity, any volunteering you do makes Swan a better place to live. I'd like to acknowledge too the councillors and staff who are here tonight and the wonderful contribution they make to the ongoing governance and support of your community. We all work incredibly hard to achieve the best outcomes for you, our community. So we've prepared a short video that highlights some of the major projects being delivered in 2025. Will hopefully uplift you and give you a sense of all the great things that are happening here in Swan. These projects, many of them have been shaped by you, the community. Your guidance and your investment and your time and your ideas make for a better Swan. So please enjoy this, and if you have questions at the end on the annual report, I look forward to taking them.
The City of Swan is thriving, a place of choice for residents, workers, visitors and investors. We're one of the fastest growing local government areas in Western Australia. We achieved some great milestones in 2023-24, and we're set for an even bigger year in 2024-25, with a range of exciting projects in the pipeline that will ensure our community continues to thrive. Let's take a look at what's in store. The city's largest infrastructure project to date, Swan Active Ellenbrook, is well underway, with a sod turning marking the start of earthworks in preparation for construction. Backed by the state and federal governments, the $108 million project will bring regional level recreation facilities to Ellenbrook residents and the wider Swan community. The construction of the Ellenbrook Community Hub will provide even more social facilities, fostering a true sense of community connection. The Community Hub is a fantastic community-driven project, with groups lobbying for a purpose-built facility to deliver inclusive wellbeing programs. We're thrilled to have opened the Balladura Intergenerational Play Space, Waitch Park. This inclusive space is for all abilities and features a ninja course, 2 giant slides, a rock climbing wall, an outdoor gym, in-ground trampolines and so much more. In Brabham, the construction of a district community centre, including function halls, meeting rooms, food preparation areas, storerooms and an external function area, will start later this year. Rolling out the new 3-bin curbside collection system, including FOGO, is in full swing with Belladura, Beachborough, Bennett Springs and Caversham receiving their bins. Midland and Guildford are up next, as we all play our part in preserving the environment for future generations. The city has a flourishing economy, supporting hundreds of local businesses to grow and prosper. From our business training and support to promoting tourism, we're boosting the economy for the benefit of all Swan residents and ratepayers. Rounding out what's on the cards, we'll deliver another big year of events, including Eltone Comes Alive, the Avon Descent Festival, and Entwined in the Swan Valley. We're also warmly welcoming hundreds of new citizens at our monthly citizenship ceremonies, celebrating those who have chosen to make Swan their home. And why wouldn't you? There is so much to love about the City of Swan. The opportunities are truly endless.
Well, I hope you enjoyed that video presentation and found it to be informative. There's some really exciting projects going on in the City of Swan at the moment, and as you can see in both the annual report and what's been shown in the video for some of the highlights this year, there is a lot of activity, like I said, going to be happening across the city at the moment. And we've got plenty more exciting projects on the agenda this financial year, so just stay tuned and keep looking on our website, and it's also contained here in the annual report if you'd like to have a look. I'll just ask if anyone would like that fan switched on over there. We can turn on another big fan. Is anyone feeling a bit warm in here at the moment? Yep. Feel free. There's no shame in hopping up and grabbing, and we'll just turn on the fans. Thanks very much, Sarah. Because we know it's going to heat up in here a little bit. This is yep. So feel free, and also please again help yourself to water at the back if you need it, because it has been a warm day today, and hopefully you can still hear me over the top of the fans, but. Is that all right? If you get blown away, yeah, not sure if we can adjust the settings on them at all, or that's it. It's coming down. Please let us know. Just put your hand up and let us know if it's too much, not enough, or we'll shift you closer to the front. Is anyone blown away yet? Yes. Oh dear. Lucky it's not a hair day. Oh. Right, well, we'll circulate it for a little while. If we have to turn it off, we'll adjust it as we go along. Right, so I just want to welcome everyone again tonight. We've welcomed our council members, those joining us online at home as well. And also just begin with just welcome everyone tonight and tell you again how it's an absolute pleasure to be here for 2025 for our annual electors meeting and to see you all here. We've got a really good turnout tonight in attendance, and again, thank you for making the time to come here, because it's quite a big night and it's important to you that we hear what your issues are. And it means that you engage with us here at council. So this meeting tonight is designed for you, for the community, for you, our electors. And tonight, we will start by receiving the annual report 2023-24. And after this, we'll discuss the general business and receive questions and motions from the community. So as we start a new calendar year, I'd really like to reflect on the city's successes and achievements in 2023-24 financial year for our community. On a personal note, it marked a very special and rewarding year as I completed the first year of my first term as the city's first popularly elected mayor. So thank you very much. I take my role as mayor very, very seriously, and I'm really proud to represent you all. The city won a range of awards for our projects and services. For Snap Send Solve, we won 3 titles at the 2023 Solver of the Year Awards. The city's website also won Kintico's Site of the Year Award in the Government and Municipal category. We were ranked as one of Western Australia's top local governments for the financial reporting in the Auditor General's financial review and results. And we earned 2 awards for our annual report 2022-2023 at the Australasian Reporting Awards. Our $71 million Stock Road extension won the top prize at the Institute of Public Works Engineering Australasia WA Awards for Excellence in 2024. Our commitment to embracing and empowering our multicultural community also earned us the Local Government Award at the WA Multicultural Awards 2024. So we've hit some big notes last year, and hopefully we can continue that into this year with everything we do with our staff and our projects, and make this community that we're living in a much better place. I know we started and completed a range of major projects as well for our community, and we reopened the well-loved Swan Active Midland after a $30 million upgrade. We opened the $30 million Dayton District Open Space, which is a major sporting and leisure and recreation hub in one of Perth's fastest growing areas. And works began on the $7.5 million Balladura intergenerational play space, which we had our grand opening last week. So if you are out and about, and whether you're from this side of the City of Swan or you've come from other areas in the City of Swan, if you happen to be going past, see if you can get out and have a look at some of the amazing things that we've got out there. We also had the initiation of the Food Organics, Garden Organics, which is our FOGO rollout, and we kicked that off. That's going to be a work in progression, and we're going to work with the community to adjust to the 3-bin system. And we've got a lot more coming, so just stay tuned, as I said, and tune into the City of Swan website to keep up with everything that's going on. And of course, these are just some of the highlights. So everything we do at the city here works towards ensuring our community has the facilities that we need and the services as we continue to grow and expand rapidly. It's been a really rewarding year, and like I said, to see our community use and enjoy these new facilities makes this a really enjoyable position and job to be in, because you finally get to complete those projects that are going to make things so much better for our residents. I look forward to discussing all the motions tonight and addressing all the feedback that you have. And again, if you've got any questions that haven't been answered, feel free to email the city or myself, and we can move them on to officers to have those questions answered for you. So now we move into the exciting part of tonight. Yeah. Are there any questions on the content of the annual report tonight? If you do have a question, just come up to the podium over here, or we can come up to the stand of the microphone here, and just state your name and where you're from and your question.
Hello, it's Madara Turner from Swan View. And that should not be a surprise, the first one. I do have a list, so tell me when to stop. Last year, I've asked what is going to be done with the $27.9 million profit from FY23. And I got the response that that is a healthy margin. So this year I'm asking, what have you done with it?
Thank you.
Thank you, Samara. In terms of local government accounting, we don't actually make a profit. This is something I said to you last year. So on your operating income and operating expense, you have to generate enough to be able to contribute to your capital. So what you would have seen on last year's statement is at the end, there's a net balance of zero. All the money from that side is transferred to the future infrastructure or infrastructure funds. So we service in funds that we have to set aside money for entitlements for staff, for other projects. You would have also seen that we have invested this year $170 million of capital works. So that money goes into a big tin, several big tins, and comes back out in terms of capital works. You don't actually make a profit as you would a business. If you did, you'd pay tax on it. But nothing goes to waste. It all comes back to the community.
Okay. May I continue?
Yes, if you've got another question, yep.
I would first like to say that if you look at the general feedback that you gave, the community gave, 73% is actually either positive or the same, so that's already quite good. So only 27% are negative, which is almost a third, but obviously I would focus on the 27, but I do acknowledge that there is a lot of good work going on. Page 15, the budget, the forecast was a list of all kind of information about the city, but the amount of dwelling is the forecast for 2028. So is there a reason why the number of dwellings for FY24 was not given?
So could you confirm the page you're looking at?
15.
15.
So I know it's not a mistake because there was a little asterisk there explaining it.
Okay. You would have seen, I think, in the report, certainly not on our website, we do a forward projection of all the dwellings out to 2051. where the city's population is expected to be around 300,000. Each year we get an estimated estimated resident population given to us. In fact, those statistics, I think Mr. van der Linde are about to be with us. So we get an updated. The reason we've put in there 2028 is that predicting accurately out, we have to temper that over each year. So that's just to give you an idea that in 4 years' time from now, that's what the population would expect it to be.
I can assume that everything else on this page is for FY24.
Everything else in the financial data you're referring to is relating to 23-24.
Yeah.
Did you have a third question?
I got 6, if you're willing to let me ask them. Page 127. The community satisfaction had dropped for management of roads, buildings, outdoor facilities, activities and events, parks, footpaths, streetscapes, and non-residential private investments. Do you have any knowledge why that would be? I know that's quite a long list of different types. And if you do you have any plans to improve those specific areas of dissatisfaction?
So page 127, which you're referring to the satisfaction measures there?
Yes.
So those satisfaction measures are ones that have been adopted by council, but we report what the community are coming back and telling us is their level of satisfaction.
Yes.
So you can see from year to year how the people are benchmarking us. Knowing all this data is something we also publish on our website across all the statistics. So is there a specific measure you're concerned about?
So all the ones that I've read, they all, I think, are on page 127. All of them from last financial year in your report have dropped. So the satisfaction has dropped. Not by much, but it has dropped.
If I'm looking at the benchmarks, I'll take, say, the first one, percentage of community who like living in the area, 95%, which is the same result as this last year.
Yep.
There's only, looking down, there's only one, maybe two where there has been a slight reduction in the score, others where the score has gone up. So statistically, there's not a major variation in what the population are thinking. Bear in mind this data is put together as a random sample. So there was some 1,700 people who had responded to this across the district, and they were selected down to form the requirement under statistical sampling. So they represented then both male or female and a mix from the wards. Aggregated back, there's very little variation in the level of change in satisfaction. So I'd actually say these numbers are pretty good.
I point out that I just did the calculation then, and the percentage is 1 to 3%, and only one had dropped to 4%.
Yeah.
So from 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 to drop 3% wouldn't really be regarded as statistically high. So
you regard this as not important. That's all I wanted to hear.
Thank you.
Page 103 discusses ecology, biodiversity, and they are again measured in community satisfactions. Those are scientific fields. 103.
103.
Yes. So my question is, why are you measuring science with community satisfaction as like we don't measure finance with community satisfaction?
Do you get that question?
No, can you just repeat that question again, please?
Could we turn the microphone up, please? It's a bit soft.
Sorry, I could speak louder.
Yeah, you could just lift it up a little bit higher. It might be a bit clearer.
I can do that. Is that better?
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, that's good.
Just hear myself twice. I don't have the right page. Page 103. I think it's the bottom part, but I can look for it.
These are the natural environment KPIs.
Sustainable natural resources. So there is discussion about ecology and biodiversity. And the first measure in them is community satisfaction. So my question is, why is that not a more scientific review? We don't judge the finance of the city by community satisfaction because it's a science.
So we're talking about now the community satisfaction. Perhaps if I use one, sustainable natural resources, N.21, as an example.
Yes.
So remember, what the purpose of this is to find out what the community feel about the service quality you deliver. That has some subjectivity to it, because if I asked everyone in the room here what they thought, but then perhaps asked the rest of the population for the City of Swan, there might be a different view. But if I look at that measure, satisfaction with waste management, 86% of residents are satisfied with the city's provision of waste management service. Again, that's a very high score in terms of general level of satisfaction. It doesn't mean that we're completely satisfied with not having everyone satisfied. Some people would like different services. Some people don't like paying for the service that we're delivering. But as a general measure of satisfaction, we also benchmark the city through this same data, because it's the same data set across, asked by many local governments. There's some, I think, 43 local governments that we benchmark with, which we publish on our website to show where the city service delivered is and its perception by community. Again, the Swan communities consider, on a whole, as a whole, a service pretty good.
Yes. The question is more, how come underneath it there aren't any more specific numeric ways of measuring? I mean, there are some, and I will ask about it. But
So,
I think there should be more, but again, it's my personal
okay,
opinion.
just coming back to the purpose of the data. This is measuring perception against the strategic community plan. If you take this set of measures and look at waste, then if you go to our waste strategy, you'll see in the waste strategy there are significant more targets. For instance, targets of waste diverted from landfill, targets of waste recovery, targets related to waste returned back through the community, collections of junk, collections of other materials. So we, in subsequent strategies, have a lot more detailed measures. You couldn't put every single measure into this report. That's why they're contained in other strategies.
Okay, that leaves you beautiful to the next question. Percent of waste delivered from landfill. The target is to achieve 60% waste diversion by 2025. FY23 had the number of 31.2%. FY24 does not have a number at all.
That is correct, because I think it probably at the time we hadn't surveyed it, but I'll take that on notice if I can, Samara. I'll just pick up that question in general, though, I think because you asked it last year, particularly in terms of diversion. The city's plan, and thank you for turning the air conditioning back on. I hope you're feeling a little bit cooler. For some reason, it must have switched itself off. So if I occasionally reach my phone, it's asking staff a question, not looking to see whether I won Powerball tonight. If I come back to the issue on waste diversion, the city's intention for its municipal solid waste, that's what's going into your red bin, is to take that to waste to energy. We had anticipated the waste to energy plant in East Rockingham to be fully operational during the year, a range of ongoing delays with COVID, etc. It ended up being around 97% complete by the end of the last year. So we're still waiting for that final 3% to be complete. Once that is complete, all of our waste will be going to locations that will have very little go back to landfill. The target there for your 31% is largely achieved by what we put through our yellow top bin, going back where 80% of that is recovered. 20% of stuff that people put in their yellow top bin just can't be recycled. But most of that byproduct can go into waste to energy plant. And the other part of that component is your green waste, where we do a bulk verge collection. Now, with the introduction of FOGO, the percentage of recovered waste that's diverted both from landfill, from waste to energy, will be much higher, because those materials go off for a separate FOGO recovery plant. Where does FOGO go? That's sorry about the pun. Where does FOGO go? FOGO is currently processed out at Red Hill for the town of Bassendean, city of Bayswater, and the first portion of the city of Swan's recycling. But through the EMRC, that's Eastern Metropolitan Regional Council, we have a contract with a company called Go Organics in Gin, who will be taking most of the FOGO from all the northern suburbs across Perth. That's Joondalup, Wanneroo, Stirling, etc. Those facilities were under expansion because a lot of councils are rolling out FOGO. They're largely complete. So as we're continuing to roll out our FOGO, some might go to Red Hill. The bulk will then go to Gin. From there, the product is recovered and goes back into the organics market. Some of it goes to the chicken industry. Some of it goes to agriculture. Some of it also comes back to people like Soils, Ad Soils and others. But roughly 97% of everything that goes to FOGO plant is recovered. Some of the heavier stuff, there are still people who put plastic bags and other things in the FOGO that simply can't be recovered.
Lower that page, you gave water consumption. Your target is to establish a baseline. Have you established a baseline? Because you give numbers and they do drop, which is very good. But is there a baseline? Has the target been achieved?
I might ask Mr. Coaten if he can answer that question. You stand up, Jim, and if you could. The microphone coming to you.
I'll provide further information, but that total has been, the volumes not being measured. I'll just take on notice and provide some detail about the baseline.
Okay. But it means we'll get an answer later.
Okay, did you have a further question?
No, just people here weren't sure what was the answer. So.
Oh, sorry, we'll just ask if Mr. Coaten can repeat that. Sorry, we didn't have a microphone close enough.
Yes, we'll provide some further information, the actual details of the baseline, but the actual consumption is being monitored and we do know exactly what it is.
Thank you.
To be fair, I mean, these questions we didn't have notice for, so we will give staff the opportunity to respond. So I wouldn't call it a politician's answer. We provide what we can in the data and we'll also get back to Smarter with that. And if you wanted to have that answer, if anyone here would also like to be included that, please leave your details with Sarah over here and we can get the answer for you. There's a lot of data in the City of Swan when you come to a meeting like this, if you know, for the executive to have on hand, you know, there's a lot of information in this report. So to be fair, we give them the opportunity to come back with the correct data. Yep.
If I could, if you look, for instance, the city's water consumption potable, or potable, depending on how you like to pronounce it, that's going to things like our swimming pools. It also goes to locations such as a bubble up fountains and a location. As the city continues to add new venues, so when we opened Swan Active Midland this year, our consumption of potable water has continued to grow. But we are signed up as a WaterWise initiative. Our intention is to try and minimise our water consumption. The challenge for places like Swan, as we continue to have new subdivisions, etc., is the amount of water that we've got to use is also restricted by the state government. There is a separate strategy. It's in our biodiversity plan that includes information regarding water and water management. If you'd like some information, I'm happy to provide it at the end of the meeting.
Okay. Questions?
Yes, sorry, a quick one. Marilena Stimfeld, South Guildford. I just wanted to have a follow-up on a question that Samar asked. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, so she asked about the reason why the annual report is reporting customer satisfaction when it comes to looking at the performance of the City of Swan in terms of the environment, social and governance measures. And I understand your reply, Mr. CEO, which is basically we just want to have the pulse of the community, right? But is there, and I haven't read the report, so maybe it's already in there, but do you also report how the city performs against their own KPIs in terms of ESG targets? Because that would be an objective measure in terms of how we perceive against what is actually happened. Do you have that type of reporting in the annual report?
So not all of the information that would report back is contained in the annual report for some of these KPIs. So things like our waste management, which is a key target for us, are reported back to the Department of Local Government. That's published on their website, and under the My Council website, you can see data contained on our waste management. The city is also redoing its biodiversity plan at the moment and looking at those new targets, for instance, on water consumption and the like. If we try to put every single measure into this, it would be a document which would be just too big and unwieldy to read. One of the reasons that we focus so much on what the community perceptions and the community expectations are is the Local Government Act was changed this year and actually requires formally all local governments to report a similar set of information and what their communities think. That way, from a regulatory perspective, the state government, particularly the Department of Local Government, can sense how they're going out in Swan. What do the people feel about the Swan community? There is a lot of information. We publish now on a quarterly basis, on an annual cycle, each individual KPIs, our environment, our built, etc., and the metrics for that, we publish them on the website. You can see a lot of data on performance. If there's something specific you're interested in, I'm more than happy to engage with you afterwards and look at what we can provide you.
Yeah, thank you. That would be good. It would be nice to see in the annual report just a summary of the bigger, baskets of performance, and then have a report, how you track. Is it, are you on track? Are you behind? Is it 50% compliance? It doesn't need to be all the details, but everything can be clumped into, bigger buckets. But I'm happy to follow up with you,
and thank you.
Explore opportunities.
If I just look at the issues around ESG reporting, there is no such standard on what ESG is. So carbon emissions and reporting the carbon emissions, consumption of natural resources, diversion of waste are all ESG measures. But so when it comes back to corporate governance, there are issues to do with investments by fossil fuel banks. You'll find in our monthly financial report, we report all of those investments to look at where our funds, your funds, are being used. So again, more than happy to engage with you. Some of the information is contained, and I'm sure we can find something for you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Marilena. Does anyone else like to ask any questions tonight on the annual report? Did you want to come up to the microphone? Just so that those at the back can hear a little bit easier. And if you'd just like to state your name and your suburb.
Simon Ashby, Woodbridge. You refer to your website. Could you distinguish between Swan Engage and the City of Swan website? Because there are two websites.
Indeed, and thank you, Simon. So the city's website, which is our main repository of information, contains all of the metrics I was referring to. You'll find them under, some of them under corporate governance on KPI reporting. Swan Engage, and promoting it down the back, is our tool which we use to do customer engagement. So when we're promoting or asking for community's opinion on a planning application, a new strategic plan, a design for a building, we will use Swan Engage. There are a large number of ratepayers. I think if someone's here can, off the top of their head, tell me how many people are registered on Swan Engage, but I know it's thousands. If there's a staff member here.
But the AEM was not on Swan Engage.
No, it wasn't, and that's why we went to the annual electors meeting, because we're not asking your opinion on the AEM, we're asking you to participate. But as we'll note in the responses we provide to you, the website is only one means of communication. Believe it or not, the tool we get the most interaction with from informing the community is on social media. On the weekend, we had an event I referred to at Ellenbrook, the Inflatables Day. I was a bit worried. I'd seen traditional means of advertising would put VMS out, and I was a bit worried. And the staff told me, don't. Thousands of people had already read it on social media. Dare I say it, for Mr. Trump and Mr. Musk and others who have owned those platforms, they are such an effective tool of communicating good information. I won't talk about the other type of information they might communicate, but we do get, Simon, much information out on social media.
Just to advise, there's about 2,500 people registered with Swan
Sorry,
Engage.
you have to say that again?
About 2,500 registered with Swan Engage.
Thank you very much.
If I could just add, if any of you would like to register on Swan Engage before you leave, we might make that 2,030.
40, yeah. it's
40.
about 40 years. Or has anyone else got any questions? Would you like to come up to the microphone? Or we can bring the roving one there. There we go. It's on the annual report.
On the annual report with regard to the natural environment, oops, and preserving the waterways, it's got reduced excess nutrient in Bennett Brook. And you've got that the nitrogen has decreased and so has the phosphorus. What is the council actually doing? Because I suspect those figures have more to do with the doubling of the fertiliser price rather than anything else. Fertiliser's gone, in fact, more than double in the last 18 months.
So we'll give you a specific answer in a minute, but remember the metrics in the ground, so phosphorus and nitrogen, are long-staying chemicals that have taken a long time to get there. The price change in fertiliser from one year to another is not going to affect that. It's time the nutrients have leached down to us. But the city is doing a lot in those catchment areas, and that is helping to minimise it. And some of the people who are here tonight as Friends Group might be able to help you afterwards. But Mr. Coden, would you like to speak to any of that, please?
Yes, thank you. The reason we use Bennett Brook is because that's one of the catchments, or the only catchment where it is contained. I guess the majority of it is within the City of Swan, so we do have control over it. Obviously, a lot of the waterways that come through the City of Swan are impacted by events outside the city, but there's a range of things that the city's involved there in terms of community education, the control of subdivisions and things like that, stormwater drainage design in subdivisions, and minimising use of fertiliser and using appropriate fertilisers there on our own parks and gardens. So while we can't control it completely, we can have an impact on it.
Yeah, that's the question. What are you doing rather than other people?
So I think Mr. Coden just referred to that, and specific actions the city taking to minimise its fertiliser use in areas that might lead into the catchment. But to pick up that point about the change to subdivisions, where we have unregulated drainage systems, where we had leach drains and other things that would simply flow into the environment, the installation of a broad network of sewage across the city, the diversion of that sewage and the nutrients contained will have a long-term impact that will be beneficial to the environment. Those actions, which are being supported by the state government, particularly through the expansion of the sewage network, we will only see micro changes from year to year, but long term they'll have a very beneficial impact.
Okay, thank you for that question. I'll ask, is there anyone else in the audience who'd like to ask a question on the annual report? Nope. Okay, if we haven't got any further questions on the annual report, we'll move on to part 4, which is general business, if you'd like to follow along. And motions carried at the last annual meeting of electors have been provided with an update, which is available on the city's website or via the QR code provided. And there are some hard copies that are available at the registration desk. 4.1, questions from electors. Questions and answers recorded in the minutes of the meeting may be summarised in accordance with the Local Government Administration Regulations of 1996. Any questions taken on notice at this meeting will be responded to in the minutes. As you see below, there's some questions there that have been asked by residents, and they have answers. So there's quite a few pages there. If one of your questions is there, it will be answered by staff there. So when we move through, I'm going to ask, are there any further questions that electors have? General questions this time. Yep, if you'd like to come up to the microphone, again, just introduce yourself and your suburb and then ask your question.
Smadar Turner from Swanview. The question is, are you aware that last financial year, Midland as a suburb had one of the lowest residential growth of the city? So are you aware of it? Do you believe it's a good thing, bad thing?
Sorry, did you say Midland has the lowest? Can you just say it a bit louder?
So last financial year, this came out a few months ago. It was for the whole metropolitan, but if you just looked at the city of Swan, the area of Midland itself as a suburb was one of the lowest growth residential number-wise. I think it was 200 people during the whole year has chosen to live in Midland.
Additional.
Something like that. So first of all, are you aware of it? I'll take that as a no. Do you believe that's a good thing? Or what are you going to do with that information in the future?
Okay. Yeah. I don't mind.
Thank you, and thank you, Samara, because the city's growth rate as a whole is one of the highest in the metropolitan area. That's largely because of all the new land that's opening up. Midland remains an area in transition with the production of both new housing and change to housing stock. If you look around surrounding streets, you would have seen many new residents go in, particularly multi-unit dwellings. The development of the Tui Garden development, the development of the recently announced state government federal funding for a affordable housing complex on the other side of the railway. The sale of land which we've initiated in New Junction, a further sale of land which we hope to achieve in the next 12 months in that space. These will continue to see a transformation. Midland needs more people. I think we'd all say that Midland needs more people to continue to enhance it as a location. But you'll see a change to the housing stock as a result. When an old house disappears, a single dwelling, and say 4 or 5 multi-units then appear on it, there is a gap from usually about 2 years for that to occur. So you'll continue to see that transition of Midland. Its population will continue to grow.
So can I ask, what are the active actions that the city takes to encourage people to come to Midland?
So we launched just recently, again on our website, I can show you this at the end if you'd like, a project which is about investment in Midland. And it's promoting the location both as a place to live, but also a place to invest. The things that will continue to drive Midland, other than people coming through here, the work's being done to expand the medical precinct to the south. Now, the St John of God Hospital development, $300 million development on the other side of the railway line, adding another 90-odd private sector beds. Every one of those beds has got to be serviced by a doctor, nursing team. All those beds and those nurses need to be served by support staff. So from that alone, you'll see hundreds of additional jobs. Just behind us up the road is again, $100 million investment by the Giorgio Group in the Landgate complex. That will see the centralisation of a range of additional government agencies coming here. So as Landgate transitioned out and automated itself, it had this enormous space that didn't have any people in it. But we'll see hundreds of additional employees come and live and work in Midland. So these initiatives, whether it be the revitalisation, as we'll hope to see at the Varsity development, just on the other side in the old Central Hotel. Now that development, we're still waiting for an approval from Western Power to go through in order to initiate it. But each of these things will continue to add to that growth of Midland. If you look at a website, you'll see across that whole spectrum right now, there's $1 billion worth of investment, physical investment happening now in Midland. That includes $350 million by the state government in the train line. So we do expect that Midland will have more people, more jobs, more provision of services over the years to come.
Thank you.
Can I just ask a quick follow-up to her original question there? And that is, in the railway redevelopment precinct to the east of Coal Dam, you have there must be 30 residential sites prepared there, but the ground is just covered with copper sulfate to keep it from blowing away. There's a monitoring well in there, which I assume suggests that there's some hazardous material in the substrate. Is that the reason that area has not seen further development?
No, do you want to answer?
So thank you for the question. The area you're referring to is under the control of Development WA. They are the marketing arm for that property. But they've recently just sold a large volume of land in that area, some for single residential construction, some for multi-storey. There's a number of other sites that are approved.
I'm speaking of the area though, it's already got sewer, it's got water, it's got power, and it's been there for
It is.
8 years.
So as part of the activation, the city continues to liaise with Development WA on the marketing, sale and development. But I can assure you some of those sites sold as late as last year, and we will see more development in that. The city does have, or there are monitoring bores in that location across that area. That's because there is a contained cell of waste on that site, which is contained and won't be removed. But we need to make sure that there's no infiltration of water that comes through that and it gradually starts to sleep out. So those bores around any contaminated land give us the chance to sample and make sure there's no contaminant, particularly reaching into the Helena River.
Dr. Robert Ilchik, South Guildford.
Thank you, Robert.
Thank you. Do you have a further question? Yep.
Scheme 17, I think this is year 3 now that I'm asking about it. How is it doing? Is it scheme 18 by now?
Sorry, can you just say that again? It's a bit hard to hear up here.
About 2.5 years ago, possibly 3, the state has told the city to rewrite Scheme 17, Planning Scheme 17. And that was last year. I was told that this year it will be provided to state. So just wanted to know how it's going.
Mr. Van der Lim will answer that.
I'll ask through you, Mr. Van der Lim.
Thank you, Madam Mayor.
It's on, Leon.
Is it on? Okay. The council already approved, supported the advertising of Scheme 18. So it has been prepared. It's been put before council. Council supported the advertising thereof. That is now with the commission for them to provide formal consent to advertise. And we expect that, we hope, before the elections or directly thereafter. So this new Scheme 18 will be advertised probably in the first half of this year.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. I think we had another question here. I'll just let everyone know that we are moving into that time for our motions. So if you have got a question, now's the time to ask. Yep.
Lynn Deering, resident of 51 Homesdale Road in Woodbridge. The question I have relates to tree canopy. Does the City of Swan undertake tree canopy monitoring activities? There's a series of 3, maybe if I can ask. Does the City of Swan consider the impact of potential tree canopy loss in planning decisions? And how difficult would it be for the council to include in its website annual reports tree canopy monitoring?
Mr. Coaten, if you're able to answer that.
Or Mr. Van der Lim.
Oh, thank you.
The monitoring of tree canopy is quite a complex matter in a large area like what we are dealing with. We've looked at various measures on how we can actually get a baseline to do that monitoring. And we're currently working with Landgate. And Landgate has produced LiDAR data that produces a baseline of that information. And so our intention is to use that information as the base. We are currently awaiting the baseline information to be released by Landgate with the intention that that data will then be on an annual basis or on a regular basis then to monitor the tree canopy itself. In terms of your second question, whether the loss of tree canopy is something that we consider in considering applications, certainly we do. And therefore, we're working on a tree retention policy that will require developers, builders to provide baseline information at the time when they submit the applications, which we will then check against this information that we'll have as a baseline that we get from Landgate. So we are working on that to to get that done.
Thank you, Leon. Can you tell me when the Landgate information will be coming to the city?
Initially, they indicated that it would have been end of October, November last year. And then the latest information was the end of January, which was a day or two ago. So we've got a call in from them today to hear when that is. We haven't received it at the end of January.
So, Leon, it's very good to hear that you do consider the impact. So, to date, if you aren't monitoring it across the city, it would make the planning decision being reached without really looking at the impact of the sort of tree canopy when a decision is taking place.
If I can
Is that right?
explain it in this way. So when, at the moment, without that data available, when a subdivision or a structure plan for a residential area is submitted, the structure plan is required to include an environmental assessment of the vegetation on site. So what we've done over the last year and a half or so, we really focused on requiring developers to provide an actual survey of the trees on site and to identify those that will be retained and those that will be lost through that development process. And then also in the structure plan, they have to identify how they will recoup those lost trees through tree planting in the urban environment, so that they aim for a tree canopy in an urban environment comparable to what we've got in urban environments in the area.
So thank you. So it's very much not the City of Swan is not actually looking at it as an overall impact upon the tree canopy within the city, because it's only looking at the site. As those applications come in, it's in relation to that particular site. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Just
so
so
the cumulative effect of that individual application should then be...
So do you anticipate, with the fact that once you do get this information from Landgate, once the fact that the city starts to undertake tree canopy monitoring, that we will be able to have that information included in the annual report?
That's correct. There should be an indication for the urban area specifically.
Right, and as part of your KPIs?
If I may, through the chair, it mightn't be in the annual report, but it will be in one of the subsidiary strategies, particularly things like the biodiversity and conservation strategy.
Okay, thank you.
Each of those cases will be dealt with on merit. That will be a compliance matter. So it depends what was approved at the end by the Commission. Remember that structure plans are commented on by the city. Council makes a recommendation on those type of developments to the WAPC, who makes a final decision on it. But say the structure plan identifies a specific area where the trees need to be retained. Normally, those areas are contained within public open space or regional open space. And generally, that is kept. Where you do find a problem is more on smaller developers, where on smaller lots, a tree may be removed or so on, and that's then dealt with through a compliance matter. And if there is legal repercussions, that could lead to fines for those people.
Can we get a microphone over this so we can all hear, please?
Yep.
Back to if you want to ask a question, come back.
Because you're talking about the small person that might have a tree on their block and they need to remove it because it's in the way of the house. I'm talking about these big developers. Now, if you go along Roe Highway and you're heading up towards the bypass, on the left, there's an area that there was masses of trees, and now it's just sand and they're just putting up retainer walls. It looks like they haven't kept anything except around the boundaries. Now, if there's a fine, all that developer's going to do is pass that fine on to the people buying the blocks. What you need to do as the City of Swan is say, right, okay, there's this fine, but we're now going to take 10% of the blocks that you could sell, and we are going to turn it into a public open space, playgrounds, whatever else. And that would be a punishment to them. Whereas now, they just get a slap on the wrist, they pay a fine, they pass it on.
Those larger developers, like the one that you've mentioned, they normally get approval for the removal of those trees through the process. It is not, I'm not aware of any instance where the larger developers have removed trees where they didn't have the approval by the relevant environmental institutions to get to remove those trees.
Okay, I'm just going to ask the gentleman at the back in the blue shirt.
Thank you, Mayor, CEO, Electors. Thank you for the opportunity to speak tonight. Leon, it's really positive to hear that we're starting to build a baseline with Landgate. And I'm really happy to hear that we're going to start to understand what the tree canopy is for the City of Swan, especially when Western Australia has the lowest tree canopy of any state in Australia at 14% and dwindling quickly due to a number of reasons. One of the areas, though, that I think that we should be asking ourselves is once we have that baseline, what's the target the City of Swan are going to set in terms of raising the tree canopy across the City of Swan? And there are a couple of key elements here, and there is a question. The first key element is, it's 1,000 cuts at a time, or it's one cut 1,000 times. And the biggest challenge that we have is the more trees we take out and the more concrete jungles we build, the less these people are going to like living in the area because of the fact that they don't have flora and fauna. And we need flora and fauna to keep our houses cool, to actually enjoy the parklands, to enjoy it in terms of, good living. So setting a target, I think, should be a strategy that the City of Swan take on board. And the second one, which I'm really passionate about, is having a retention policy around flora and fauna in every single development that we undertake in the City of Swan. So raise the bar. Let's get a 40% retention on flora and fauna within the City of Swan, because we can't keep building these concrete jungles.
Well done.
Okay, thank you. I'll just see if that gentleman has given you his name and suburb. Thank you. Now, we are moving along on time. We did say that we've got quite a few motions to get through at the moment. So we'll take these last two questions and then we're going to move on to the motions.
I'll be very quick. This is for Leon and the tree canopy. So you indicated that we don't have any data to assess how the canopy is doing in the urban canopy in the City of Swan, and I would challenge that because the WA today has published a few months ago how Perth is performing in terms of retaining the urban canopy, and the City of Swan was doing dismally. So that's, data are out there. We already know that we are doing very poorly. And the other question is, that was the comment. The question is, you indicated that the City of Swan is waiting from Landgate to get a baseline assessment. Mm-hmm. At what date are we going to set that baseline? Because we have already lost so much. So if the baseline against which we will compare future loss or performance is 2024, the bar is really low. Are we going back to 2000, 1996? So where will that baseline be? If you don't have the answer, it's not important you answer now, but that's food for thought, and it's important to pick a good one, not one where we can hide the head in the sand yet again. Thank you.
Would you like staff to respond to that if they're able to?
I'm fine with what you said. I think the baseline information that Landgate will provide is obviously at a certain date. I think it was sometime during 2024. And then in terms of setting targets, the one thing that everyone must just also take in consideration is that because we are a growth council, there are certain areas in Swan that have been identified for future residential development. So you will expect that in those areas, there will always be a loss of tree canopy. So it's that balance between providing new housing in an urban environment and retaining vegetation. So the retention of vegetation within those areas will be informed by the environmental reports as part of those developments at structure plan stage. And then the planting of new vegetation within those urban areas will be then more comparable to what you get in a normal urban area that you can compare it with. So where you see information, just broad information that we've lost tree canopy, a lot of that lost vegetation is as a result of the new residential development and you need to keep that balance, and sometimes that reporting doesn't reflect that. So that's just something to keep in mind.
Yeah. Okay.
My name's Deborah Mulroney and I live in Guildford. My question is about, well, Guildford. In particular, the traffic flow and management. I live where I have to exit my street right near Guildford Grammar. I rung the ranger, which took me 45 minutes to get through, and by that time, the guilty parents had left. Every afternoon, somebody parks in the no standing zone, and when I remind them that means you are not allowed to stop there, you are stopping the vehicles from exiting Terrace Road, you at the very least get, what does it matter anyway? And sometimes much worse. They are killing the trees along Allpike Street. Allpike Street is 5.4 metres wide, which is barely wide enough for two modern medium to large size cars. There are 2 dead trees there already and another 3 in, I would say, immediate peril of death. They tried to remove the 2 dead trees last year, but that was in term, but they didn't think to come back during the school holidays and remove them. Allpike Street has no lane markings on it, except in a very few spots. So in the last month, there's been 3 very close call accidents on the corner of Station Street and Swan Street, because your view is blocked to the left, so you can't see anyone coming around that corner. And on the weekends, the traffic from Swan Street Terrace Road is parked almost up the other way, up Swan Street. So the traffic in that part of Guildford is an absolute nightmare. And the tree canopy would be lovely if we had underground power, but every year they have to come and cut the middle out of all the trees. So perhaps somebody could work out the economics of underground power and how much it costs to trim all the trees, because I can't have a street tree and I would love to, because my car sits in the sun every day. I'm not allowed to have a carport or any sort of shelter because I'm in a heritage area. And the other side of the road has trees, our side doesn't, and it's way nicer on the other side of the road and way cooler if you go for a walk. And as for the development areas, you could go back to the old system, which was the developer could clear to put in the road and had a clear line to put in power, gas, all those services in the front and down the back boundary for the sewage, and he wasn't allowed to touch anything else on the property. And when you put in the plans for the house, you put in the plans which trees were going and what was staying, and it had to be approved by the council.
Well, that's thank you very much, Deborah, for bringing that to our attention. There's quite a few little issues in there that we can have a
the
look.
thing 60 years ago. The developer only cleared the road and for the services, and everything else was the purchaser's responsibility and had to be approved by the council.
So I can appreciate a lot of those issues because I live in the area and I'm well aware of those issues, particularly around heritage areas. So some of those issues we can look at tonight, and they're issues that we would have been able to look at for you just with a phone call or an email to council. So we'll follow up on some of those things, such as the tree issues that you've brought there, the traffic issues. We can have a discussion about. Oh, you're right there. But I'll also just address the underground power issue. Thanks, Mr. CEO.
And thank you. And you aren't the only one. We've engaged a number of residents around there, particularly the issue of school parking and the like. We understand. And there's also been issues with PTA parking. So we'll come back to you on that. If I could just speak briefly to underground power. The Guildford area is approved to have a targeted underground power project. It's the second one to be initiated in our area after the Midland area goes underground. The detailed planning for Midland has been underway for some time by Western Power. We expect the design for that to be completed this year in 2025. They're running a little bit late. There's a huge demand on Western Power resources at the moment. So replacing the power network sometimes falls the second stage. But they will do Midland Guildford as two packages. We'll see Midland first, then Guildford and Woodbridge coming in after that. So in the next few years, you'll see underground power. That, as you say, gives us the opportunity to cease pruning the trees in the area to allow the tree canopy to grow more substantively and provide a more better shade cover for your area.
Okay. Thank you very much, everyone that came up and came forward with those questions. And as I said, if you've got any questions during the year or any issues that you want to bring to council, you don't have to wait to an annual electors meeting. You're more than welcome to email us, phone us, and come and have a chat to your councillors, and we can, move through those issues that you have, so that you don't have to wait, 6 months down the line or 12 months to bring them to like a meeting to tonight. So again, the contact details are there if you need to bring any of those issues to address any of the concerns that you've got. Right, we're going to move on to the next part. This is the part you've all been waiting for. These are the motions. So 4.1 is motions from electors. Now, the following motions were received in writing to the meeting. A mover and a seconder. Oh, you ready to go already? Have you been? That's fantastic. A mover and a seconder for each motion is required. And if you've nominated a seconder, I'll ask them to speak next. When you're invited to speak, please state your full name and your suburb. And the first cab off the rank tonight is Humphrey Bogart. Well, I'll let you introduce yourself and your suburb. Thanks.
Yeah, Humphrey Bogart and Henley Brook. And I'm representing the Swan Valley ratepayers here. And our motion is that the City of Swan cancels the planned implementation of its FOGO bin policy in the Swan Valley. The motion is based on for a few reasons. Reuse of FOGO contents. Many residents in the Swan Valley live on large properties and can safely manage and recycle FOGO waste. For example, much of the food waste is used as food for animals, or it can be composted, and green waste is mulch or composted. Secondly, general waste. Many residents have livestock, for example, as horses. These animals are regularly fed that is provided in plastic bags. Those plastic bags are not recyclable, so they have to go in general waste on a weekly basis because it doesn't take long to fill up the bin. And therefore, many residents have multiple 240-litre waste bins. And then there are the other people in the agricultural industry in the valley that have also some plastics that need to be regularly removed. Then we have the implementation. As an argument probably against this motion is that it is administratively difficult. That would be a nonsense argument, since the City of Swan knows very well, very precisely, where to send the rate notices. And in the digital world of 2025, this location-specific policy is easily implemented. So our conclusion is that the Swan Valley Ratepayers and Residents Association requests the City of Swan to cancel its plan to introduce FOGO bins in the Swan Valley. It is a suburban concept that is unnecessarily implemented in rural environment, with obviously increased cost and no obvious benefits to the City of Swan, landowners or the environment.
Thank you very much, Mr. Becker. I'll ask, do you have a seconder? And your seconder is name?
Anne.
Sorry? Thanks, Anne. And I'll ask, do you wish to speak? Thank you. I'll ask, is there anyone against? There's no one against? Oh. Motion's...
Would you rather take the motion carried or go back to a quick count of those for and against?
Okay, so there was no one that wished to speak, so we'll ask to do a quick count of the cards.
I have two staff over there.
So those in favour of the motion, if you could put your green card up, please. Hopefully you can hear me down the back. And we're just going to ask staff to go around and count. So just bear with us. It's going to give you a good arm workout tonight.
I'm not going to rely on the staff. We've got eyes to be able to see and count accurate.
I got 29. 29.
Okay, thank you. We had 29 for. And is there anyone against? Red cards up? 1. So the motion is carried. Thank you very much for that. We're going to move to the next motion, which is motion number 2. Mr. Adrian Muir, guys.
Good evening, everyone. My motion here is to reborder the suburb of Beachborough to be managed instead by Bayswater Council. Reasons for the motion are Swan Council is expanding faster than its resources can cope. I don't believe the council is capable of this expansion without sacrificing basic maintenance in older suburbs, especially those on the borders of Bassendean and Bayswater councils. Swan Archives Swan Archives shows evidence of countless maintenance requests for Beachborough dating back more than 10 years, yet they simply will not address them. The majority of councillors focus on promoting new suburbs while actively working against the Altone councillors, causing a disparity in the care of Altone suburbs. Please feel free to go and witness this for yourself. Happy to meet any of you anytime and show you. I would add that despite the new builds in Swan being designed for simplified maintenance, the same lack of care within the council has led to some of the new suburbs rapidly turning into unkept and neglected areas. Again, maybe witness for yourself. Finally, please stop taking rates from property owners in Lockridge, Guildford, Beachborough and spending them on suburbs that are part of your expansion plan. Please reborder Beachborough to be managed by Bayswater Council. Thank you for your time. And by the way, it's fantastic effort what you're doing out at Ellenbrook. That video was awesome. So I know you're doing great work there. Thanks for that.
Thank you very much, Mr. Skies. And I'll ask, do you have a seconder? And sorry, your seconder's name?
Chris Dorozenko.
Thank you very much, Chris. And I'll ask, would you like to speak to the motion? Okay. If you'd like to, we'll put that straight to the, or else does anyone like to speak against? No, if there's no one like to speak against, we'll put that to the vote. Those in favour? So I had 17 for the motion, and those against, if you could hold up your red card, please. 17-3, the motion is carried. Thank you very much. And we move on to motion number 3.
Bob Ilchick, I live in South Guildford. We ask that cost place a temporary moratorium on new construction in the Hazelmere Commercial District located on Bushmead Road and other localities directly affected by similar construction until such time as the affected roads are upgraded to a single design standard consistent through both residential and warehouse parts of the suburb. Madam Mayor, councillors, and fellow citizens, thanks you for coming tonight. The rapid development in Hazelmere is overtaxing the existing road network and results in an unsafe travel zone through the area. Currently, road attributes change at the boundary of each new property, generating a confusing and challenging network to traverse, often in neglect of the 50 km/h speed limit. In addition, many of the neighborhood streets in the area were not designed for excessive large truck movements. These include Bushmead Road, Water Street, West Parade, Hazelmere Circus, and Mary Street. These are all now being overrun and extensively damaged by large trucks. This lack of consistent road design and increased heavy traffic results in an area of reduced safety, compromising the residential neighborhoods adjacent to the warehouses and those transiting through the area. Council and the general public may not be aware, but Bushmead Road is also a major cycle route between the hills and the railway bike path at East Guildford. So the current conditions put an extremely vulnerable group of road users at heightened risk. And I'll parenthetically add that I've been hit by a car, run off the road by trucks, and suffered a puncture in that area in the last 6 months due to construction debris on the road. These problems have been long known. Results of a community survey taken in 2019 and released in the 2020 local area plan for Guildford Hazelmere lists under the heading of what's happening in Hazelmere. Number 1, upgrade the Bushmead Road from rural to industrial standard as the transportation issue identified by the community. Likewise, under key concerns in South Guildford, number 1 was safety risks and congestion on West Parade due to freight vehicle movements. This same document begins with a list of actions in the area. The first 4 relate to Hazelmere traffic, with the 4th being consider improved pedestrian and vehicle connectivity and safety for all users when assessing development applications and structural plans in Bushmead. This document claims that those actions have commenced, but little is apparent on the ground. The problem has been identified and solutions suggested for 6 years. Now is the time for the city to put action to words.
Thank you very much. I'll ask, do you have a second?
Ms. Stimfel?
Marilena Stimfel, thank you. Is there anyone against? Does anyone like to speak against? No? If there's not, we'll pop that to the vote. So I've already just put that to the vote. I've already put it to the vote.
Are you voting on that?
Well, I had asked to put it to the vote, so I did ask. Do you have a question?
I'm not quite sure whether upgrading the roads is the solution or providing a more direct route.
So at this point in the debate, it's not open for discussion. So I'm going to go back to where we were at. I'm happy to take your comments after, but we were asking, is there anyone, is there anyone against? Wasn't, so we put it to the vote. So those in favour of the motion, if you could put your green cards up nice and high, thank you. So 26, and those, and if there's anyone against, if you could hold up your red card, please. Oh, carried 26. Thank you. And we move on to motion number 4.
Bob Ilchick again, South Guildford. We propose that costs, in conjunction with other relevant councils and Mr. Waugh, that's Main Roads WA, commenced traffic studies relevant to a cloverleaf-style grade-separated interchange for Roe Highway at Bushmead Road, similar to the Kalamunda Road Roe Highway interchange, to facilitate ingress and egress for heavy vehicles in the new Hazelmere Warehouse District, and thus reducing the load imposed on residential streets and roads now used for those purposes. The current Hazelmere Warehouse precinct design is overly dependent on residential roads for heavy vehicle movements. These neighborhood roads were not designed for nor constructed to handle the large volumes of heavy truck traffic emanating from Hazelmere. In essence, current planning has produced a warehouse precinct with no viable connection to the outside world. All the while, Roe Highway, which bounds the precinct to the east and was conceived as the main truck route through the area, remains inaccessible in the current design. A direct connection to this road is logical and is vital for the precinct. Traffic studies related to other proposed options show that a more westerly access to the precinct, and that would be Lloyd Street, is an unviable option as it will result in traffic delays of over 15 minutes on the proposed bridge and intersections further up the road operating at 600% capacity. All that to the already, add that to all the already significant delays at Lloyd's intersections with Clayton Street and Great Eastern Highway at your own risk. The solution to improving traffic access to Roe Highway is obvious to those looking for a workable alternative. Provide direct access to Roe Highway, the state's designated route for trucks. A cloverleaf-style access to Roe Highway at Bushmead Road would allow traffic movement without creating additional congestion at Clayton Street or Great Eastern Highway or on the residential roads of Hazelmere and South Guilford. Thus, this interchange would go a long way towards addressing concerns expressed by many in the area who 6 years ago identified heavy vehicle traffic and road quality as two of the area's major issues and asked for council assistance at the time. We attempt to amplify and sharpen that request with this motion.
Thank you very much, Dr. Ilchik. I'll ask, do you have a seconder? Thank you very much. I'll ask, does anyone like to speak against the motion? If there's not, I'll pop that to the vote. All those in favour? All right, 27. And those who are against, to raise your red card. And that's 1. So the motion is carried. Thank you. And then we move on to motion number 5.
All right, thank you again, Madam Mayor. Midland Great Eastern Highway Motion 3, fast track a study to upgrade Great Eastern Highway from Lloyd Street east to Roe Highway with the goal of using the entire easement and adding slip lane and storage lanes to separate turning traffic from those continuing on Great Eastern Highway. Traffic congestion is becoming legendary in Midland, with queues extending from traffic light to traffic light, characterizing the experience of many drivers. Adding more traffic to an already overwhelmed network, that would be Lloyd Street Bridge, will not solve this problem as shown by existing traffic studies, but rather by fully connecting older infrastructure with newer components designed for high traffic volumes and heavy vehicles. To this end, we believe that appropriate enhancements to Great Eastern Highway between Lloyd Street and Roe Highway are the most effective way to solve much of the traffic tie-up in the Midland, Midvale, Bellevue morass. The current Great Eastern Highway Road, which occupies just 12 meters in an easement approaching 30 meters in width. Given that this is sufficient room, we propose a study in conjunction with relative authorities into the feasibility of additional central turning lanes and bike lanes, left turn slip lanes. These enhancements would greatly facilitate traffic movement into and out of Midland, as these upgrades effectively eliminate the cause of much of the congestion when entering or leaving Midland. No storage lanes for those turning off of Great Eastern Highway. The current traffic problems north of the Helena River will not be solved by adding more traffic to an already overwhelmed network. That's in reference to the Lloyd Street Bridge, but by simply adding 2 meters of width to the road and a traffic light at Ferguson Road, which is Main Road's current response to congestion in Midland. Rather, the solution is a fully connected older infrastructure, Great Eastern Highway, with newer components, Row Highway. This motion, in conjunction with the two proposed earlier, provide a template for wiser transportation through our city and demonstrate that safety and facility for our residents and visitors is top priority for this city. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Ishik. I'll ask if you're a seconder. Thank you. And I'll ask, is there anyone who'd like to speak against the motion? Yep. You'd just like to state your name. Just come up to the microphone if that's all right, and just drop it down a little bit lower because there you go.
Because I'm tiny. In light of the previous motion, shouldn't this either be somehow combined or held off until there's been a proper traffic study done? Because in a way they're all linked together. I believe that the traffic bridge that is holding up the connection of the bypass and Lloyd Street is before the planning minister because of the design of the bridge, in that it was supposed to be just like a ramp over the Helena River, which in the case of climate change, we could be in for a cycle of extremely heavy rain as well as extremely light, and it should be designed to allow floodwaters through. But I'm not a great fan of the on-off ramp at Callawanda Road because being short, although I drive a car with a high seating position, you can't see cars coming down Callawanda Road. But my understanding was that Lloyd Street extension was to encourage the heavy traffic to use that to get onto Great Eastern Highway and onto Abernathy Road if they were heading to the Kewdale industrial area, or if they were going elsewhere to go out onto the Row Highway and either head north or south. So shouldn't a comprehensive traffic survey be done and designed?
So this is tonight's motion that Dr. Illich has put forward. And so if you disagree with that, then it's your right to come up and speak against the motion.
I agree that the previous motion says to build one thing and then do a study about another thing. It's just wasting money if the study comes back saying, oh, we shouldn't have done that. We should have spent that $500 million doing the other.
So thank you very much. Those questions and those motions will go to council and they'll be considered. So I'll ask, does anyone like to speak for the motion? Anyone like to speak against the motion? There's no one who would like to speak for? Sorry, you can't comment at this stage, I'm afraid. We're in the middle of a debate. So I'll call again. Does anyone like to speak for the motion?
Marilena Steinfeld, South Guildford. This motion obviously is part of, it needs to be considered together with the other three. So this is just the last little piece of the puzzle. There is no point in upgrading the width and facilitating slip lanes and turns onto Great Eastern Highway is going to make that road more accessible and more fluid. That's no question about it. And in response to the comment of the previous person that spoke against the motion, the Lloyd Street Bridge is going to bring heavy traffic that will need to turn right onto Great Eastern Highway. The traffic study conducted by Jacobs in 2017 that looked at the scenario where Robinson Road was closed and Helena Street was closed, rated the intersection of the southern entrance from Lloyd Street Bridge at Clayton and the Great Eastern Highway as a fail. They also gave a congestion rating of 615%, whereby anything greater than 85% congestion is a failure. So that bridge is not going to solve, as many people think and hope, traffic. Midland, unfortunately, is working around plans that are outdated, and there hasn't been, I think, a modern view of how we can resolve the I don't know how to define it, but the mess, I guess that's the best and easy adjective, that is the traffic around Midland. We need to look at what is the land use now and see how new plans and new things and options that maybe haven't been considered 20, 30, 40 years ago can help open the gridlock. Sometimes being espoused to old plans is not the best option forward. There might be a bit of pain in changing directions, but sometimes it's worth having a look. So I support this motion because it will open up other possibilities. Thank you.
Thank you. And I'll ask, is anyone who'd like to speak against the motion? There's no one who'd like to speak against the motion. I'll ask of you your right of reply if you like, Dr. Dilly. Or we're happy to go straight to the vote.
I'd just like to say that if one steps back and looks at what the design is regarding implementation of the Lloyd Street Bridge, it is clear that Lloyd Street itself in Midland will then become a 4-lane truck route that will extend all the way up to 2J Road. Why are we trying to put trucks through the middle of Midland when we have a road that was designed and built for trucks called Row Highway?
Thank you very much for your right of reply. Now I'll ask those in favour to please raise their green card. Oop. So I had 25 in favour, and those against? 8 is 4. So the motion is carried. Thank you. Move on to motion number 7. Oh, sorry, I lied. Number 6. Tucked at the bottom there. Spud. Yeah.
Spud Carroll from Gidgee. I'd like the City of Swan to give greater protection to mature trees, especially remnant trees that are endemic to the location where they are growing. This protection may come with a policy of a tree preservation order or a significant tree register. And in relation to, I think a lot of people have spoken on a similar subject tonight, and so basically I'm just covering much the same ground here. But I'd also like the city to engage an ecologist, someone like Simon Cherryman, Eric McCrum, to advise the council the importance of the trees and the associated biodiversity that comes with them. Along with a local ecologist, it may be worthwhile to engage a First Nations traditional owner to also give insight to the connection of the trees to the Noongar Whadjuk people. On a positive note for the city, I'd noticed that on 2J Road and Morrison Road, you've done some excellent plantings, and I see the trucks constantly watering at this time of the year, and it's fantastic to see. But these are new trees, and in the future they'll be great, but I'm talking about trees from the past. The trees are our heritage. The trees support so much flora and fauna. It's not just what lives in the trees, it's a lot of the things we can't see. It's what's in the ground, it's the birds, it's the insects, the spiders. Everything's associated with it, and that's why I think it'd be really important to get an ecologist to talk to the council, go out in the bus, whatever, go to some of our remnant areas. I know the City of Swan is one of the largest, or it is the largest local government area in the Perth metro area. But people might be interested to know that LGAs of Armidale, Vic Park, Serpentine, Jarrahdale, South Perth, Stirling, Vincent, Bassendean, Canning, Joondalup and the City of Perth all have significant tree registers. City of Swan don't. But the City of Bayswater has actually got 2 significant tree registers, one for private property and one for private land. Our trees, it's that time of we hold these annual electors meetings in the middle of summer. I've been here before, I've said the same thing. I'm pretty sure that it's always been voted by the electors, the motion's been carried, but for some reason, the council is reluctant to go through with it. As humans, we think that we're above nature, and as humans, we think we are superior to everything else, including nature. And we think of ourselves as very clever, but we seem to have turned ourselves into consumers of nature. And we're not above nature, we're just a small part of a delicate ecosystem. And so the city's got a biodiversity strategy happening at the moment. I've attended some of the meetings. Fantastic strategy. The best thing that we can do is implement that strategy. We need to go ahead and get that happening. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Spud. Now I'll ask, is there a seconder? Thank you, Mr. Oh, sorry, if you can state your name. Thank you very much, Patrick. And I'll ask, is there anyone who'd like to speak against the motion? Right, there's no one who'd like to speak against the motion. I'll put that to the vote. Those in favour? So we had 33. Was anyone against? I thought that was nice to see. Thank you very much. So that's carried. And motion number 7.
Marilena Stinful, South Guildford. The electors request then, as a matter of urgency, the administration directs the landowner and relevant government agencies to conduct an audit on the performance of the containment cell, also known as toxic waste dump, located on lot 792 on Lloyd Street, opposite to Bunnings in Midland, to ascertain the integrity of the containment cell and implement urgent remediation measures if the containment is breached. The reason is as follows. During the remediation works of the former Midland Railway workshop, toxic waste comprising arsenic, chromium, copper, nickel, lead, zinc, asbestos-containing material and asbestos fibers were placed in the toxic waste dump located on lot 792 as a temporary measure. Correspondence for DWARE, which is the Department of Water, Environment and Regulation, in 2017-2018, stated that the stockpile would not pose an unacceptable environmental and human health risk, end quote, as long as the site was securely fenced and the thin 20-centimeter clay cap and the vegetation cover remained intact. I claim that the toxic waste dump is now an environmental and human health risk, and it is no longer safe. And this is why. The clay cap over the toxic waste dump is eroded and displays numerous cracks and rills, some quite deep, meaning that dirt can be mobilized and water can infiltrate the dump. Secondly, anyone can see the poor state of the vegetation on the dump, also characterized by large areas of dead plants or not colonized, meaning that dust can be airlifted easily from the cracks and rills. A breached clay and vegetation cap will allow mobilization of toxic heavy metals into the groundwater and potentially asbestos fibers into the air. Lastly, the fence is breached, at least in 2 locations. As of yesterday, I went and checked myself. The ensuing logical conclusion is that the containment cap and the exclusion measures are not performing as intended, and the potential for unacceptable environmental and human health risk is now very likely. It is the duty of care of this council and of the risk owner to take immediate action to verify the functionality of the containment cap and of the fence and implement a maintenance plan to ensure that the integrity of the structure and its fencing are sustained continuously, not on and off. Until that time, the toxic waste dump is relocated to an appropriate waste disposal facility.
Thank you very much, Marilena. And do I have a seconder? Dr. Ilchik? And I'll ask, does anyone like to speak against the motion? If there's no one who'd like to speak against the motion, I'll put that to the vote. Those in favour? That's 27, and I'll ask those who are against. Was that Neil? Neil. So that's carried 27. Thank you. Now, I'll ask those in the audience if you wish to have a quick 5-minute break, or would you like to keep going? We have one, 2, 3 left, 4 left. So if you'd like to raise your green card, if you'd like to have a break. Is that right? Okay.
All right, fine.
So it looks like everybody else wants to keep going. If you do need to hop up and have a stretch, just pop down the back, grab something to eat and a drink. And if you need to stretch your legs, council. So we'll continue on. So we have motion number 8.
Yeah, it's good the CEO doesn't have a card because he already said this is not going to happen. Yeah. Anyway, this is the motion is in reference to the toxic waste dump located on lot 792, and the elector requests that the administration works with the landowner and the relevant government agencies to develop a strategy for the relocation of the toxic waste dump located on lot 792 to a suitable contaminated waste disposal facility. In reference to the council meeting held in Midland on the 6th of April 2022, I asked if the toxic waste dump on Lloyd Street opposite to Bunning was planned to remain at its current location in perpetuity, or if it was going to be relocated to a suitable contaminated waste disposal site. The reply from the City of Swan stated that it was the intention of the landowner and of the council to relocate the toxic dump, but that no plans had been made yet. The electors believe that after more than 15 years, it is time to stop the intending and to start the doing. The toxic waste dump clay cap is breached and probably has been breached for a while. This toxic dump and its toxic contents do not belong in Midland or in the Helena River floodplain. I work in a similar related field, and I can tell you I have never seen a toxic waste dump being left to fester and disintegrate in the middle of an urban center. It is mind-boggling that, it is mind-boggling that after more than 15 years, this dump remains located in the heart of a busy commercial center. I also claim that appropriate danger signage should be placed on the fence to let people know that they find themselves next to a toxic hazardous waste dump. This dump is actually the best kept secret in Midland, right under our noses and potentially also in our lungs. We the people have the right to know, we have the right to protect our health and that of the environment, we have the right to see the safety of the community having priority over the purse. So I think as a conscientious council, it is your job to get this done. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Marilena. I'll ask, do you have a seconder? Dr. Illich, thank you. I'll ask, is there anyone who'd like to speak against the motion? Nope. I'll pop that to the vote. Those in favour? I had to. So that's 27 for. And is there anyone against? No, that's carried. Thank you. Okay. And motion number 9.
This is easy, I promise. This motion is as follows. The elector requests that the officer's recommendations that are provided when commenting on a motion contain a summary listing if the recommendation is consistent with the City of Swan targets, guideline, strategies relevant to that specific motion. The reason? Many of the recommendations made by the officers are inconsistent with the City of Swan adopted guidelines, policies, and/or targets. And I'm speaking about the soft targets, the ones that are not legislated, so they are not mandatory. And this happened when the motions speak to principles associated with environmental, social, and governance policies, such as biodiversity, sustainability, climate change, tree retention policies, and such. For example, it is my experience with this and previous council that these ESG-focused policies are more often than not ignored in the office's recommendations, but such discrepancies are never reported in the recommendations. Having internal ESG policies, targets, and guidelines that are consistently ignored amount to green and social washing. For the sake of transparency, good governance, and accountability, the officer's recommendation should state if their recommendations line up with these policies, and in particular with the ESG ones, so that the taxpayer can easily assess how the city abides or not to their own aspirations. And no, this request is not going to be too onerous, as I'm pretty sure that it was going to be the standard answer, as it will just require a simple list in a spreadsheet and a tick mark, and with the resulting table pasted into a final recommendation. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Marilena. Do you have a seconder? Mr. Ellis? Thank you very much. I'll ask, is there anyone who'd like to speak against the motion? If there's not, I'll put that to the vote. Those in favour? So I had 25, and anyone against? Nope. No one against. That's carried. Thank you. And then motion number 10.
Yes, last one for me at least. So the motion is the electors request that only native trees and plants are allowed for landscaping of new and established developments and for infill replacement of plants on verges and public landscaping areas. The reason is we are continuously removing native vegetation from our natural environment and decimating urban forests to make space for homes, roads, warehouses, you name it. Our native fauna rely on native vegetation for food and shelter. WA has an immense variety of attractive, well-adapted, hardy, and colorful plants. Yet developers and the city, not to mention the general public, do all they can to pretend we don't live in Australia and continuously plant exotic species. Under an increasing or hostile climate, many of these exotic species are not doing too well and are also target for exotic pests. In the list of trees recommended by the City of Swan, there are 13 exotic trees. Of these, some are environmental weeds, olive tree. Others are doing it tough in the drying and hotter climates. You just need to look at a coral tree or a plane tree to see how poorly they are doing these days. And they are becoming weaker and likely the target of infestations. Most are deciduous, making a seasonal mess. It makes sense to avoid planting these exotic plants in the first place and to slowly replace them when they die out with natives. To give you an example, I live in a development where Chinese tallows adorn our streets. They're beautiful trees. But every time people ask for a tree, the City of Swan plants yet another tallow. Maybe next time we could plant a native trees. It would help if the exotic trees are also removed from the list of recommended trees by the City of Swan. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Marilena. Do I have a seconder? Mr. Dr. Ellis, thank you very much. I'll ask, is anyone who would like to speak against the motion? I'll put that. Can't make a comment, unfortunately. First of all, I was just about to say I want to put that to the vote. Those in favour? So 26 for, and those against?
First one we've disagreed on.
Or anyone against? And I have 1. So that motion is carried. Thank you very much. Now we come to the last motion for tonight, which is motion number 11. Thanks, Alison.
My name's Alison. My name's Alison Pollage. I live in Guildford. And my motion for the annual meeting of electors is for investigation into the black residue found by Guildford residents under the flight path. That the City of Swan investigates the nature and source of the black residue reported by residents in Guildford, particularly those living under the flight path. The City of Swan engages with relevant environmental and aviation authorities, including the Department of Water and Environment Regulation and the Perth Airport Authority, to determine whether aircraft emissions, industrial activity, or other sources are contributing to the residue. That they conduct testing on affected areas, including washing lines, outdoor furniture, other exposed surfaces to analyse the composition of the residue. Report the findings back to the council and the community, along with any recommended actions to mitigate potential health or environmental impacts. Advocate for a necessary regulation action or remediation should the investigation identify pollution concerns linked to aircraft operations or other sources. I would like to say that residents in Guildford have raised concerns about this residue without anything happening. And I feel, in view of the childcare centre that has got the go-ahead in Fauntleroy Street, parents placing their children in that childcare centre should be aware of the pollutants, whatever they are, and decide whether they want to take the risk for their young children. And I think the City of Swan have a duty of care to ensure that all of us, residents of the City of Swan, live in a safe environment. And I urge Council to support this motion and to address the concerns and not leave it for someone else, like the Perth Airport Authority, who don't seem to be interested either, as I have tried in various ways to get the testing done. And at $2,000, quote, I can't afford it. I'm old, it doesn't matter to me, but it will matter to young children under 5 who are playing on equipment with this residue 5 days a week. Thank you.
Thank you, Alison, very much. I'll ask, is there a seconder? Thanks, Greg. And I'll ask, does anyone like to speak against the motion? Yep. Would you like to come up to the microphone? Thanks, Chris.
Okay, about 7 years ago, I did extensive testing throughout the Perth metropolitan area concerning carbon particles. And there are the emissions from planes, the turbine burning of kerosene, and they're in the range 22 to 27 nanometer, which is half the size of from diesel emissions, which are 55 to 60 nanometers. The ash that you're talking about is much bigger, and that isn't the issue, is really the 22, because these are all respirable and enter tissue. Unfortunately, every aircraft in the world is continually emitting with its complete combustion, the 22 to 27 nanometer. So And then worse than that is the diesel, and every daycare place is on a corner of a traffic light, and they're much worse than the planes because they're consistently stopping and starting. The issue is much bigger than the planes. The planes is the smallest issue, but they are heavy. If you want to see heavy emissions, it's near the Liebherr site because it's where the planes are taking off and they're accelerating as they're climbing before they get to Guildford. So the problem is much more extensive than just worrying about the black ash. That's not the problem. The problem is the burning of diesel because there's so much more of it, or the burning of kerosene, both of which are with us, and we all participate in all of them every day. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Chris. I'll ask, does anyone like to speak for the motion? Does anyone would like to speak against the motion? If there's no one who'd like to speak for or against, would you like to have a right of reply, Alison?
I'd just like someone to do a survey. In the last 5 years, there's been a huge increase in traffic, bar during COVID. And I've been in Guildford for 25 years. And when I started, I wasn't wiping black stuff off my washing line, my outdoor equipment. And I am now, and I'd like to know what it is.
Thank you very much. All right, we're going to put that to the vote. Those in favour? Okay, so 27. So I had 27, thank you. And those against? I have 1. So the motion is carried. Well, that brings us to the close, to close the discussion of the motions that were registered for consideration tonight. And are there any further motions from the floor? Right, we have 2 there. So we'll start with Ms. Deering.
Thank you. Unfortunately, I missed the 12 o'clock cut-off and my computer had died, so I didn't get this in. My name is Lynn Deering and I live in Woodbridge. The motion I put is in relation to green corridors and a way of future-proofing our city. There is no doubt we are under the wand of development, the pressure of housing prices and over-expanding residential housing, industrial warehousing developments, and moving into bushland areas and our food growing areas of the Swan. There is simply a multitude of factors combining that requires us to think and act differently here in the City of Swan. I have no time to highlight the population growth, and I think we've already heard all that through the annual report. I am here to propose that the city officers be required to research the concept of adopting a green corridors policy for our city to help better future-proof our city and improve the economic potential and the development of our city in the future. Green corridors strips of significant presence of vegetation that link outstanding natural areas of a city. In addition, they bring numerous advantages in increasing and protecting biodiversity, mitigating heat sink, reducing pollution and noise pollution. I could go on. It has been the catalyst for building many linkages between existing natural reserves and isolated remnant bushlands on public and private land, and has secured habitat for the state's endangered wildlife. We need to think carefully for our future generations and our City of Swan's future. Just how are we going to respond and what measures we can take now that will make a difference and a legacy? Midland is not a pretty city. We stand to lose more natural features, bushlands, reduced amenity, and the growth is unpredictable over the next few years. I can go on. Livable cities and smart city programs use corridors in a way of trying to future-proof their city. The eastern states, down the eastern states suburb, they have all green corridor policies in good cities, right? It's not a difficult thing to do now. So I ask, it means, I know everybody's tired and I think I just want to get to the motion. So my motion is that the City of Swan investigate and identify natural green corridors present in our city, providing a report back to Council by August 2025. That the report identifies existing green corridors linking reserves, floodplain, wetlands, bush forever and remnant bush sites. The green corridor connections that emanate from the city town centre and surrounding sites of Midland, Woodbridge, Hazelmere, Guildford and the Swan Valley as part of phase 1 to form a project pilot. That the city seek funding to support a more livable and smarter cities program that includes a green corridor concept to help in the city's response to climate change and the better future-proof our city.
Thank you very much. Lenore, so if you have a seconder. Who was the first one? Take. Marilena Stemple? Thank you. And I'll ask, is there anyone who'd like to speak against the motion? There's not? No? Then I'll ask you to put it to vote. So those in favour? So that was 27 in favour. Anyone against? No one against, so it's carried. Thank you. Now we had someone else. Marilena had another motion from the floor.
Sorry, this just came in this afternoon. All right, so my motion is the following, and this is a good segue to Lynn's motion, actually. So this is that the City of Swan explore the opportunity to work with the Shire of Mandarin and the Bibbul Nama Aboriginal Association to extend the Helena Valley Parkland project downstream along the Helena River through Hazelmere, Midland, and Guildford. And the reason is the Bibbul Nama Aboriginal Association is managing a project called Buru.
Sorry, Marilyn, I didn't want to interrupt you. When I heard your motion, though, I just wanted to let you know that we already have signed up.
You have, but there is another little piece here.
Okay, just checking. Thank you.
So I'm just explaining to people that the Bibbul Nama Aboriginal Association is spearheading a project called Buyul Barbilia, which is looking at developing a catchment level action plan for the Helena River Association that will protect it and enhance its future from top to bottom. As part of this program, the BBB is leading a project to create a parkland along the river, with the Shire of Mandarin already supporting this project for the upper section. So the association is now looking for contribution to develop a parkland, what's the word I'm looking for, management plan for the section between Hazelmere and South Guildford. And Mandarin has already committed to the upper catchment, so it would be a good idea if the City of Swan would contribute as well and support, and I know that Francesca will get in touch with you soon.
Thank you very much. Yeah, and I'll just ask if both ladies could provide a copy of those motions to staff. Now, lastly, we have a seconder. Smarter, Turner, thank you. And is there anyone who would like to speak against the motion? No? If not, I want to put that to the vote. Those in favour? So we're at 26, and is anyone against? Although one person against. Thank you very much, and that's carried. Well, thank you very much for those extra motions from the floor. I hope you've enjoyed tonight's annual electors meeting. Did you have a question? Sorry? Oh, another motion. Crikey, I thought you were lined up, sorry. Well, we've got one more motion.
Can I just put one too from the floor?
Sure. We've got two more. Those that want to continue?
One I asked before was why could the council not see their way to extending the footpath along Swan Street where it goes down, or where it doesn't go down, to Fish Market Reserve? It stops about 200 metres short, and you have to actually then go onto the road if you're pushing children in the pram. And I was told, I think the reply was there was no call for it. And I'm wondering why there is no call for it, since there's a playground there, obviously specifically for children. And what are the City of Swan waiting for? A fatality? Because it's very scary pushing that last bit down the road when there are four-wheel drives, towing trailers with boats on, going both ways. It's quite scary, and it's impossible to push a pram along the grassed area.
Thank you very much, Alison. So that one might not necessarily need to be a motion. We can actually look at that as an operational matter.
Okay.
So if you're happy for staff to contact you, we can have a look at that for you.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Deering had a motion? All right.
A motion put by the Woodbridge Ratepayers Association. Basically, traffic congestion on the south side of the railway is a serious and increasing problem as a consequence of several factors, including poor planning, road design, including Cale Street, Metronet rail and building developments, closure of Helena Street crossing, engineering works for the eastern extension of the suburban rail car, failure to extend Lloyd Street over Helena, increased numbers and length of freight trains, and failure to relocate the freight railway out of Midland CBD. Consequently, funneling of traffic, light cars and articulated semi-trailers west to Amherst, the north-south to the Morrison Road crossing and Stirling Crescent is an unacceptable problem and raises concerns about safety, particularly for Woodbridge Primary School. Rail want information on the future proposed plans and activities to address these problems. It also has increased and extenuated the parking issues across Amherst Road adjacent to Woodbridge Station. My motion is traffic congestion and loss of amenity through Woodbridge and Midland, that the City of Swan undertake a traffic study and assessment to understand the flow of traffic and obtain current data on the level of congestion at Morrison Crossing that includes Yelverton Drive and Amherst Streets. That the City of Swan run information sessions for the residents of Woodbridge to outline City of Swan's proposals and the way the City of Swan proposes addressing the problems before the other projects commence in the area. That the City of Swan get back to Ra about the best way to address this and what is the possible and what's possible for the area without the loss of amenity.
Thank you very much. Do we have a seconder? Chris, you happy to? Thank you. So it's Chris. No, I was after a seconder. Yeah, sorry, and it's Chris
Davis.
Davis, thank you. Okay. Now I'll ask, is anyone against the motion? Does anyone like to speak against the motion? Right. Then I put the motion to the vote. Those in favour? You can't if it was there was no one again. Sorry. So you do want to put it to the motion, though, you said.
Move motions from the floor without any consideration.
Okay.
But you've got a moved motion now. That's what's got to be put.
Okay, we have to do that then. So those in favour? Okay, just one moment. So we have called for a vote And we now have green cards showing. You can't call an amendment in the middle of it. Yeah. So, just one moment. What is the amendment?
The lady stated that, Chris stated that it was, for Morrison Street and Amherst. But I'd like to track the Great Eastern Highway to be included in the survey because it often takes 5 or 6 changes of lights and traffic and quite a way back up Great Eastern Highway.
Okay, well, I'll ask. Is that acceptable to the mover? Okay. So now we've got the amendment to the vote. So now we're going to, if it's acceptable, we'll take it as a standard motion then. So those in favour? So 24. And is there anyone against? No, motion is carried. All right. Well,
as I was trying to do earlier, and it was obvious that the motion that Lynn put forward that was amended, that was earlier talked about the Great Eastern Highway with slip lanes and filters, and whether this would have an implication for the Lloyd Street Bridge and the Bushmead interchange. Surely we should be putting forward a traffic review for the whole of Midland from the Farrell Street, from sort of the Farrell Street boundary to the Guildford, down to Guildford, the whole area, because just doing one thing, which is the Lloyd Street Bridge, a lot of people think it's the panacea, and it may not be the panacea.
so
Right?
Chris,
And that's why you've got to do all of them. So my motion is that the traffic review, or whatever you call it, has got to be a wider one, taking all of Midland. It isn't just a little selfish Woodbridge one, even though I'm Woodbridge ratepayers. It's got to be the greater Midland area one.
so what I need you to do is just formulate that into a sentence, which is your motion and what you're looking for. So
Well, exactly. That's that the council have a traffic review. What do you call them? Traffic review. The traffic review carried out for the entire Midlands area from Farrell Road to Guildford to ensure.
Okay, hang on a minute. This is Chris's motion, so he has to be able to.
Well, no, but that's the issue. If you're trying to do an ad hoc motion, that someone's going to have to speak to modify it again. Anyway.
Right,
there
so
you
your
go.
motion, do you just want to go back through that again? Is that the council have a traffic area study?
Stephen, what's it called?
You're looking to do I presume, Jim, a traffic study across the Midland transport area?
Yeah.
And I think we've got the gist of what you're asking.
Okay, and seconder? You'd like to make an amendment? Hold a second, Chris, you might have to go back to the microphone for a second. So you'd like to make an amendment? What was your amendment?
So, stated traffic impact assessment across Midland greater area from there to there, taking into account motion 3, 4, 5 that were discussed today, yeah, and including the optionality and the actual function of the Lloyd Street Bridge. Does it help or does it not help?
Is that acceptable to the mover?
Absolutely perfect.
Okay. Okay, thank you. And if you could provide that in writing, Marilena, to the staff as well, thank you. Okay, so we had an amendment and we need to put the amendment to the vote. We're going to do it this way or put the whole lot. If the whole lot is acceptable, then we'll put the one motion to the vote. We're just going through this phase from it. So those in favour? Right, I don't know if that's for another motion yet. Okay. Twenty, and is there anyone against? Right, that motion is carried. And Deborah, did you have a motion from the floor?
I just want to amend the motion to read from the southern City of Swan boundary.
That one's already been carried just now, Deborah.
Well, that's what I was standing here waiting to do.
Oh, so we normally call out amendment.
Yeah.
So I wasn't sure if you were coming up for the next one.
I don't know exactly where the southern boundary of the City of Swan is, but so that it takes in where the Lloyd Street Bridge, I understand, is supposed to connect to Abernathy Road or Cudale Road, one of them, and to the north, to how 2J Road fits into it, because Gidgee has been fighting the Orange route for, I was up there 20 years and they were fighting it then. And Main Road says it has to go ahead, but it's only, 2 kilometres from 2J Road to Great Eastern Highway? And it should be linking in with the sale yards up at Mouchet.
Okay. So that's getting into a bit of a more complex
Exactly.
issue. That's fine.
But
So
if we're going to spend, if somebody's going to spend all this money, we may as well spend a little more and do it properly.
So we'll just discuss with the CEO. What we'll do is we'll see if we can, or how we can incorporate your part of the, because you didn't get to do your amendment.
Farrell Road is like one street, the other side of Roe Highway, but it doesn't take in a northern boundary at all.
Okay,
as
so
it
we'll
stands.
get staff to see if we can help, like I said, incorporate that into Chris's motion if you're happy, and we will.
It's like main roads, when they initially designed the Mitchell Freeway, it was actually supposed to run down Marmion Avenue and then Hale Road. But
So
the people in
if you-
Churchlands didn't want that happening. So
No. You have registered your details though, so staff have your information, so we'll be able to get in contact with you and look at
'cause
that.
As it stands, there's no northern boundary on that.
No.
And Gonna spend all that money.
Thank you very much, Deborah. Okay, so that was the end of the motions from the floor. We are now going to wrap up by saying a very, very big and sincere thank you to everyone that came tonight, because I know it's a big deal to come out after a work day or to make it down here at night. And, you know, it's really lovely to see everyone out tonight taking such a big interest in the community and the things that are really passionate to you. And like I said, don't leave them until an annual electors meeting. Feel free to give us a call. We can work with staff and our councillors to see if we can find solutions to those issues. And also, could you please hand your cards back into staff? And if you would like to stay for a cup of tea or coffee or, cold drink at the back and some more food, you're more than welcome, and to mingle with your councillors and staff. And again, I'd like to thank you, and we will close this annual electors meeting tonight at 8:38. Thank you.